Hello, everybody. This is the Hammerhead Tuesday night edition. Normally we go live on Mondays, but Rob's been a world traveler for us this week. He's actually out in Indianapolis for the NFL scouting combine. So we've got boots on the ground, literally boots. If you watched Rob's YouTube channel yesterday when he was on his way out there, he had a nice picture of his boots that he was wearing out there. So we got those boots on the ground in Indianapolis, and getting to be face to face with some folks. And real quick before we jump off, just wanted to say, E. Kim says, "Hey Jack and Rob, good to have you on. Good to see you." And
hello,
then,
E. Kim.
Raphael 5629er says, "Hello, Rob, Jack, and everyone. Hello." Well, real quick, how you doing, Rob? I didn't even ask you how you were doing. I got into this.
I'm doing well. Yesterday, our normal Monday was a travel day, and I was wearing some nice boots. If you follow me on Twitter at The Left Shoe, you can see some of these sporadic updates as they come along. You have literal boots on the ground here in Indianapolis. It was a rather painless travel day to get here, and then got my little studio set up here, which is not ideal. It's not the home setup. I'd rather not have a white background with my white head against it. But what are you going to do, right? You make the best of it that you can. And so that's what we're doing. I am right across the street from the Lucas Oil Stadium. I mean, right outside of my window, I have a beautiful view of the stadium. And then the convention center is right across the street from that, which is, freaking enormous, Jack.
That's awesome. I know I saw your tweet late last night, where you had the picture of the stadium right behind your room there, and the great view. I guess the glare must have made it so that you couldn't shoot face with that behind you tonight.
No, unfortunately not. I would get a mean reflection off of the glass if I did that. I did want to try, though, to get, just a little background of like the neon of the Lucas Oil coming through. It would have been epic, but instead you're left with just me. But hey, it's a combine. I'm trying to look professional, so you at least get me in my dapper threads, right? I mean, it's not a complete second to Lucas Oil in the backdrop, but hey, it's something.
Yeah, there you go. And then Super Gremlin just jumped in really quick. He said hi to me, so good to see you. And then he says here, hope Rob is having a great time at the combine. And same to me as well. But I'm not at the combine. I'm here at home. But I get to live vicariously through Rob this week. So how was it today, Rob?
It was phenomenal. I mean, overall impressions, Jack, just very impressed by the sheer magnitude of this event and the professionalism with which the NFL puts it on. And no surprise there, right? I mean, the NFL is a multi-billion-dollar business, and so you wouldn't expect anything less. But you walk into that convention center and you're walking for miles. I mean, it just feels like a never-ending chase to find the various places in which the NFL has set up. But went in, got the press credentials. I'm very excited for that, right? To have my name on an official NFL credential. I am thrilled beyond measure to have that. I was really overcome by, like I said, the overall size of the event, the number of people that are there, the size of the convention center itself, the people who are hosting it. I mean, I can't say enough about the folks here in Indianapolis. They've been very kind so far, very welcoming. Can't wait to get some food tonight. I have to admit that I'm a little starved at this point. Had a great breakfast. I may have skipped lunch a little bit, getting excited about the combine, but I will definitely feast and hope to come across some executives that may have had one or two cocktails with their dinners tonight, so that maybe I can pry a little bit of information from them.
There you go. I don't know the name of it, but I know there is a steakhouse in the area that you're around, which, from what I remember, there's a lot of business that goes down at that steakhouse. You might, Jason and Jordan might know the name of it. It's escaping me at the moment, but I know
I
There
hear
was
it's St. Elmo's. I hear St. Elmo's
that's
is where a lot of it goes down. And then there's another one that I've been told about as well, where apparently some of the drinking starts, and that one was like prime 57 or something like that. So I got my eyes out for these spots just so that I can get all that inside intel. Let me tell you, I mean, just to be there at the combine, like standing next to people that you only see on television was sort of a wild thing. I'm there with my iPhone trying to capture video of somebody talking at the presser, and who's standing in front of me with his bald head blocking my shot, but Matthew Berry, right? I mean, like Matthew Berry with his iPhone is in front of me with my iPhone. And so that's the kind of environment that you have right here. I'm sitting next to Josina Anderson. This was the highlight of the day by far. Sitting next to Josina Anderson, again, filming the exec at the time. And Jason Aponte and Jordan Elliott are there close to us conversing about something they had just overheard. Josina turns around and shushes them. I mean, to get shushed by Josina Anderson was phenomenal. And then afterwards, she turned around and was completely pleasant and like chatted us all up, was a phenomenal person. And was like, hey, no sweat. I just need to get my freaking recording, right? Like you were talking while I was trying to get something that's going out on my stream. So I had to let you know, but it was delightful. I mean, the entire experience, met and spoke with Matt Mayoko, phenomenal conversation. Jennifer Chan, David Lombardi. It was fun to have conversations about the Niners with highly insightful people that were there to share in this sort of experience that everybody's going through here at the Combine.
Yeah, no, that's awesome to hear, and it is pretty funny to hear you guys getting shushed by Josina Anderson, and I can understand that she's trying to get a record in, like you said, and
that's right.
It's going to bleed right into that, and so no, that's amazing. I'm extremely happy for you with the fact that you have the credential and all that kind of stuff. I know what it was like when I saw mine for the first time, so I can only imagine what it's like. I kind of put myself. I've been there, so I'm happy for you. That's fantastic that you're getting the opportunity and making the most of it, talking to the folks out there and everything else. And I'm looking forward to seeing what happens tomorrow when John Lynch takes the stage.
Me too. I will be up at the front of that, whether I've got to use some elbows to get in there or not. I will be up at the front to get the best recording of John Lynch that I can get, and I will come up with whatever good question I can shout at him from that position.
There you go. There you go. We might want to ask him, while you're there, you might want to just ask him about Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, the news broke today that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to need shoulder surgery on his throwing shoulder. And if you remember, he injured that in the wild card game against Dallas, and according to Adam Schefter today, he is going to be getting surgery here any day now. And then Ian Rappaport says that it's actually a surgery to repair a torn capsule in that throwing shoulder, and that means that Garoppolo is going to be on the shelf for 16 weeks. He won't be able to throw until sometime around the end of June, beginning of July. What's your first initial reaction to that?
Surprise that it took so long for this to come about, and that it's happening right now, where it seems on the cusp of when the 49ers are going to be looking to trade Jimmy Garoppolo. And Adam Schefter, I didn't see him today, but Ian Rappaport was there, so he must have been doing his reporting live from the Combine. I got a great action shot of him speaking to, I believe it was Albert Breer at the time, and he's drinking coffee. He starts to laugh, and he gets this amazing expressive look going. And so, he was among some of those folks that was right there at the Combine, that were right there at the Combine, all in that shared space. I've been pretty steadfast that Jimmy Garoppolo's trade value has not moved, even when he started to perform better, and then even as he got injured. This news, Jack, quite honestly, is the first time that I've had to really reconsider that. I just have to imagine if I'm a team that's giving up a premier draft pick, and by premier, I would envision a first or a second round draft pick. If I'm giving up a premier asset like that, I'm going to want to see Jimmy Garoppolo throw after the shoulder surgery. That to me seems like a precursor to this deal. And yet we know the 49ers are going to want to get Jimmy Garoppolo off of the books prior to the start of the new league year, or at the start of the new league year, around that time, March 16th, you would think that they might have some trades in the works right now. The other thing I will say is I'm surprised that the shoulder was the more severe of the two injuries. Honestly, when we heard about both, you heard considerably more about the thumb than you did the shoulder.
Yeah, you really did. And it's funny because just going back and looking through some of the transcripts, because I was trying to kind of get a feeling for some of the things that had been said around the time when he was hurt, because I was going on with Grant earlier today. I just kind of wanted to remind myself what was talked about. And one of the things I came across was he was asked about that. He was asked about, it was after the shoulder injury and he'd already had the thumb injury. And he was asked which one is worse, the thumb or the shoulder or the thumb. And his answer was yes. Basically that they were both bad. And then, at the end of the season, on the 1st of February, when he was asked about surgery, he kind of left things to be, out there, right? He said, I don't know. We're going to try to not have surgery. We want to do everything we can. So in a way, this last month it's been a month since the season ended, and now we're just getting the surgery. It just seems like it's a really bad timing here for the 49ers.
It's horrible. And I will say that it's possible, to Jimmy's credit, that what he described there is factually correct, that he and the doctors said, hey, we're going to give it a shot. Hopefully it heals. Hopefully we give it 4 to 6 weeks of rest, come back in, we'll get another MRI, we'll get another x-ray done, and we'll take a look at the progress at that point. It's entirely possible that was the game plan. Jimmy went back in for that follow-up. Things weren't healing in the way that they had hoped, and therefore he opts for surgery. If it's not that, if it's, some sort of a choice or a team that has come in and said, well, we'd like to trade for Jimmy and we'd like to make sure he's had a successful surgery first. There are some hypotheticals out there. To me, the one that makes sense with everything else that we've heard would be just the natural progression of the injury. Anything else seems suspect to me.
Yeah, it does. I don't think there was any kind of foul play involved or anything like that. I just think like you said, it just took some time for them. It's just kind of drug along, and it's bad timing for the 49ers with this now being the 1st of March and the combine, when so much business gets done, and the new league year starts 2 weeks from today. Well, 2 weeks from Thursday technically, but the free agency tampering period starts 2 weeks from today. So right. It's going to be tough. One of the things too that's interesting, and we'll get to some of these comments here in a minute, but one of the things that is interesting is this news broke this morning, and I kind of agree with you that I don't know how much this is going to change the trade value. Really, we'll get into that a little bit, but there was a report from Jordan Schultz where he's stating that teams are still intrigued by Jimmy Garoppolo, in particular the Washington Commanders now and the Pittsburgh Steelers are still quite intrigued with Jimmy Garoppolo. He gave some reasoning why too, basically stating that with Pittsburgh, they have their new offensive coordinator, Matt Canada. He's a big RPO guy, which is very similar to what the 49ers run in San Francisco. So they can see that fit with him. And then with Washington, they have a coach up there that they wants to bring in a new quarterback. He's mentioned it a few times, and they have some cap space to work with already. So those are two spots that are still on the table.
Yeah, and both of those make a ton of sense for me. I mean, I have been predicting Pittsburgh for a long time, and I think that's a reasonable fit for Jimmy Garoppolo. I think you have to have a team that believes they're capable of winning right now, and people could argue that the Washington Commanders don't fit that bill. I would say that last year they underperformed, that coming into that season, there were a lot of intelligent talking heads talking about the Washington football team at that point in time making a push to win the NFC East. I mean, we're talking about when Chase Young is healthy, a very potentially dominant defense. If you could bring in quality quarterback play, that could be the difference for Washington. And you're looking at a desperate coaching staff to some extent, right? A coaching staff that needs to win now, that may not have the time frame to wait on a rookie quarterback or someone that needs to progress. So I see those as viable landing spots for Jimmy Garoppolo. And, while I think that it would impact his trade value to have this surgery and not know the outcome of it, let's be honest that there have been incredible advancements in medical technology. Many of these surgeries, even complicated ones like ACL tears, are now becoming much more routine. So it's entirely possible, not being a medical professional, that we're talking about a shoulder surgery that is very routine, and that while he will not be able to throw, as was quoted, for somewhere in the neighborhood of 16 weeks, it could be that he's expected to make a full, complete recovery, and there's very little doubt about that fact.
Yeah, that he is expected to, and I do agree with you that Washington would be a really good spot for him. I like what you laid out there. That Washington, if you think about who Washington is a defense-driven team that runs the ball, has a defensive-minded head coach, a little bit different than what he has out here. But it's a team that was a quarterback away from being back in the playoffs last year. Because if you remember, even the year before in 2020, when they made the playoffs, they were not a very good team, and except for when Alex Smith was healthy. Alex Smith was the reason that they got to the playoffs, was because they had a veteran quarterback that knew how to hold on to the ball and manage the game, which is really what Jimmy Garoppolo probably does best. And so I think we talked about this before, where I told you I think it's going to be kind of a mid-round pick in 2022, and then with bigger compensation coming in 2023. Depending on how well he plays. And if I'm the 49ers at this point, and with the shoulder surgery and all these kind of things, I might be willing to even take just a 2023 conditional if it can get as high as, I could say, a 2 or a 1 based off of some kind of numbers. I mean, some kind of metric that he hits. I think that would be their best case scenario for them. We'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, I thought for sure the Niners were going to attempt to leverage it into draft picks this year because of the idea that you're on Trey Lance's rookie deal, and you're attempting to bring in some key pieces to fill out this roster and win right now. But you also have to look at maximizing value. And with this news on Garoppolo, again, this is the first time that it has actually called into doubt for me whether the Niners will get that second rounder. I think that a conditional pick seems like a fitting way to get significant value from Jimmy Garoppolo, with the uncertainty that must exist around the idea that he is now just getting surgery at this point in time. So while I would have eschewed that as a possibility up until today, I have to consider that as more of a likely outcome for the San Francisco 49ers, that if they're obsessed with getting that value for Jimmy and not just removing him from the books, then they'll have to seriously consider bringing in a conditional pick for next year based off of playing time or playoff appearance. Yeah,
for sure. That's where I'm with you on that one. And then I want to jump over at a question here. I think it's a good one. Since we're talking about Washington football team, he brought it up. It's how about them Niners? Says at Jack and Rob, is Brandon Scherff too expensive if Lakin leaves? 0 sacks allowed looks darn good. I think I'm not sure what his numbers look like in terms of what he's expecting to bring in, but that is a name that I've heard mentioned on the market.
Yeah, I've seen him mentioned above Lakin Tomlinson as far as projected return. And, I think it certainly you have to wait and see all of the interested parties, but you could see a scenario where he's a fairly close comp to Lakin Tomlinson. So I would be okay from a talent standpoint if the Niners went that route. I do think if they miss out on Lakin Tomlinson, that they should invest at the position. It would be a huge mistake in my book to go into next season with a second-year quarterback looking to take the next step and have, question marks at both of the guard positions. To me, that just is too much uncertainty for my comfort level. Scherff would seem to fill in nicely at one of those.
Yeah, Scherff's an interesting one because he played it. He had he's been franchise tagged the last 2 years, so he's made $15 and $18 million the last 2 years. Oof. But then you go and you look at his over the cap valuation, and they have him at only about $4.5 million. So it'll be an interesting negotiation with him, I think, because he's a really good guard, but he's also older than Lakin Tomlinson at the same time. So it's kind of an interesting little deal right there.
That is. What a transition to go from making that franchise tag money to maybe being down there in those single digits. That's a big drop off for him.
That's a really big drop. I don't expect the 49ers to want to spend, $10 million or more per year on a guard. That's why I have a feeling that Tomlinson will be moving on.
Yeah, I think that's a safe bet.
Jamie says, ask John, this is for you. Ask John why we lost so many offensive coaches. What is the narrative? And is there a changing of the guard in the organization? And I know that's something that we've talked about a little bit last week on your show, is that there's definitely a changing of the guard on the offensive staff and a little bit on the defensive staff as well.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, you go through one by one, and some are different cases. It is a case-by-case basis. Mike McDaniel obviously left to become the head coach of the Miami Dolphins. And I do think that even though Kyle Shanahan could have blocked some of those coaching transitions, that there always is a bit of an understanding in a friendly organization, such as the one that Shanahan runs. There's always a bit of an understanding of, hey, you're going on to fill out your staff. I understand that you're going to want to take a couple of your coworkers with you. Here are some of the names that I'm willing to part with that I won't block you from taking with you. And I do think that the Wes Welker scenario, him going back home to, his old home state, there's different scenarios for each one. I think they thought they could upgrade with Embry, and they brought in Anthony Lynn. But I will say, I do think there's something to this that Jamie's bringing up. I do think that there's most likely a trend within some of the remaining coaches that left or were let go, in that my guess is Coach Shanahan wants to move forward with a system that is built completely around a mobile quarterback. And he wants to bring in people that are 1,000% on board with that and that bring some ideas to the table. So my guess is there is some impact in the shift to Trey in these departures that we're seeing.
Yeah, I agree. I think there is. I think they're trying to get a staff that's going to work best with his skill set. And it's going to be fun to watch how this all plays out. Because I know that I was thought of as the pro Jimmy guy, but I'm really pro 49ers and whatever's working. And I feel like, I was pro Jimmy. I thought that Garoppolo was the right choice for 2021, but I really feel that in 2022, Lance is the right choice moving forward. We saw it. And, I agree with you. I think they need to be all hands on deck moving forward with Lance and really building around him.
And
so we'll see how
credit to you and Kyle Shanahan for being right about that. I mean, the Niners getting to that NFC Championship game really vindicated the decision to stick with Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah, it did. And it also shows what the great job that Shanahan did over the second half of the year, getting them to that game when especially when you got a quarterback who now is getting, already had a messed up thumb and then he's getting shoulder surgery as well. So it shows the great job that he had to do there as well. And then
most definitely.
Yeah, for sure. Just jumping back to the combine just for a second, there was a little bit of news yesterday and that the 49ers coaching staff isn't going to be out there. It's just going to be John Lynch and Adam Peters and the front office and their scouting group will be out in Indianapolis. Meanwhile, Kyle Shanahan and the coaching staff will be back here in Santa Clara getting together, getting things ready, and they'll be watching film and talking to prospects as they come along. Did you have any take on that group not being out there and it just being the executives and scouts?
A little tongue in cheek, I mean, there's a part of me that's okay with Shanahan and the coaching staff staying back at home because there's less fear of a Joe Williams type of a situation in that regard. But no, I don't know what to make of this, Jack. It seems like there's some significance to it. It seems like there's a larger storyline. Could it be as simple as Coach Shanahan is still attempting to fill out a few spots on his coaching staff and he wants to stay in Santa Clara and continue that, and that he believes that, he can be equally as effective in scouting guys via video, that the NFL has raised their game in providing that asset after, last year with the combine being completely eliminated in that regard with people being able to attend. So, what I want to say is, having been here now myself for just a day, I do feel like they're missing out on something in some respect. I do feel like there is, at a bare minimum, there is networking that's happening here. There are deals that are being decided on here. And I understand that John Lynch is the lead on any of those moves. But at the same time, it seems like a missed opportunity not to have Kyle Shanahan out here having similar conversations with his peers.
Yeah, well, and what's funny about that is that I think there's only something like 5 or 6 of the coaches that are actually in Indianapolis this week, from what I recall. There's a great number of them that are staying home, that aren't going out there. It just seems to be a little bit maybe of a trend. Maybe there's a little bit of a change. I forgot all about the fact that it wasn't there wasn't anybody there last year for the combine. I forgot all about that as far as the visitors. Um, the 49ers they're in a situation. I think there's a couple of things that are happening. One, they're completely rebuilding their staff, so I think there's a little bit
Right.
of that's going on. And the second piece is I at this point, when you get to the combine, what you're really trying to do is confirm what you've seen on tape with the individual. So I think the one thing that they are missing out on is the discussion, not necessarily with their peers, but it is sitting down with the opportunity to sit down with the athletes, get to know the guy
Right.
a little bit. I think that's the part that they're missing about, maybe not having that first interaction going here. But at the same time, they do have the ability to bring 30 players into Santa Clara, and like Bobby Turner used to do, work the phones like crazy and get to know these guys over the phone as well. But to see the guy, see somebody face to face, that's always, I think, the best way.
It is the best way, and it lets you know that face-to-face interaction really does give you a better feel for how you interact with the individual, like how you're going to coach them, how they're going to receive feedback from you. That emotional intelligence, as you sit down with people, you sort of absorb a piece of them that I don't think you can get in the virtual environment. And yeah, the 49ers could bring in some of those for a visit, but again, it just does seem like a potential missed opportunity. I get that it is more of a time management decision, that Kyle Shanahan believes that he's getting the most bang for his buck by staying in Santa Clara, that he has enough to fill his plate there. I only saw a handful of coaches there today. Bruce Arians was there. Andy Reid was there. Cliff Kingsbury was there. Brian Daboll was there. And a couple of others that are escaping me. But to your point, I mean, not a whole lot of coaching staffs out there. And so if it becomes a bit more of a trend throughout the NFL, I guess I feel less passionately about it in that regard. However, again, as someone who's just experiencing this in person for the first time myself and getting value from it in that regard, I do think that it's fair to say there may have been a trade-off. Kyle Shanahan may get more out of staying in Santa Clara than he would have being here, but in not being here, he is definitively missing out on some things. So it just becomes a question of, can he offset whatever negative he's getting by not being here with the positive good he may be doing in Santa Clara, in building out the roster, in continuing to watch tape. So to me, it's about that balance.
You're speaking of the coaches over there. Just real quick, did Mike McDaniel talk today? Do you know?
Mike McDaniel did not speak today.
Okay, so he's going to be out there tomorrow. You need to go check him out, because if he's not doing it at the same time as John Lynch, that'd be a fun one to go see, because he's a really good speaker. And from what I understand, he's supposed to be doing some fun stuff with Rich Eisen as well, based on a recent interview that I saw.
And I've yet to see Rich Eisen either, who I'm a big Rich Eisen fan. If I see him, I will definitely go up and shake his hand. Mike McDaniel, I just want to hear his opening joke. I mean, he's coming with that first one-liner. So I'm waiting for it.
Yeah, according to what I heard on the podcast of Rich Eisen's podcast last week, or show with Mike McDaniel, he's supposed to be in the building, I think, tomorrow and be there when McDaniel talks. But he threw down a challenge to McDaniel, and McDaniel threw it right back at him. So we'll see how it turns out. That'll be fun to see.
Ooh, that's going to be exciting.
There you go. And then real quick, Nick from the Mo says, that's probably Missouri, I hope, says, Jack, great content. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And then jumping up here to Dusty, where was it? It said a minute ago. I saw it. Sorry. He says, Jack, too bad you didn't go. Would have liked the breakdown of players you could have reported. I could have. It would have been a really good thing. And maybe what we can do is you can help get this name of this channel out, so that we can start to generate more views and more clicks and all those types of things. Because the more you and your friends and family and anybody else that's 49er faithful watch this channel, the more likely I'll be able to go out and do what Rob's doing right now, and get out and do this full time, so that I can get out on the road and do these kind of things. Because right now I was working from home today.
I've got my little studio set up here. I got two chairs next to me so that I can back the camera up and actually do a little interview like a freaking Tonight Show set like I've built here in my room. I don't tell the hotel I've rearranged all of their furniture. It looks quite different in here than it did when I first got into the room. My downstairs neighbor is probably like, why are you dragging sofas around the freaking floor? But anyway, it would be phenomenal to have Jack right here next to me. So next year, 49er faithful, we need to make that happen. So we are going to build up these channels and make sure that it supports getting Jack out here with us doing this thing, because it would be phenomenal. I mean, I would love to have Jack's insights right there in my ear as I'm out there at the Combine in Indianapolis. And I hear it's going to be moving around. I hear the NFL is opening up the bids to allow, much like the Pro Bowl, that we could see the Combine moving around the country.
It's supposed to be, I think it's going to be in Los Angeles next year, right? Correct? Isn't it supposed to be in Los Angeles next year?
I think you may be right about that.
Yeah, so that would be fantastic, and that would be great to be sitting there right next to you. Like you said, we could be doing nightly breakdowns from the scouting combine. We could have Jason and Jordan, and maybe bring in some of the other reporters and all that kind of stuff, and interview folks. That would be that'd be. We're getting way ahead of ourselves, and that'd be a heck of a fun time. And Raphael says, hit that like button. Yes, please do. And if you see the little subscribe button down in the corner later on, if you're watching this, go ahead and hit that as well. Or hit it after the show, either one. That'd be very helpful for the channel and myself. Just kind of talking about the coaching staff, though, there is a little bit of a change. I don't know if you've heard or not. This news kind of broke a little bit yesterday, but definitely this morning. Bobby Turner is not expected to be back with the 49ers in 2022. There isn't any news as far as it being a retirement. The 49ers haven't put out anything official, but according to a couple of different reports, Bobby Turner will not be with the 49ers as a running back coach in 2022. We talked a little bit about this last week, Rob, as far as it was at that point just speculation, but now that we know, how does that hit you?
It hits me poorly. That is, I respect it. I respect Bobby Turner's decision, or, if it's not his decision, that would be unfortunate. So my assumption is that it's Bobby's decision to step away from this year, and whether it ends up being something that's more permanent, I'm sure that we will find out in the near future. I think that we will feel the loss of it as early as the draft. I mean, he was relentless about being in contact with all of the backs that he felt were viable draft candidates for the San Francisco 49ers. And it was about dialing, picking up the phone, making those phone calls, and just being in constant contact with all of these guys and getting a real feel for who they are as individuals, testing their accountability and having them call him back, and really just sort of doing that old school due diligence of following up with their parents, their coaches, their teachers. And again, this is all just reports that I have read about Bobby Turner, but that's how you uncover these gems. There's no magic to it. It's about grinding. It is about the relentless pursuit of finding these candidates. And Bobby Turner was all about that. And the 49ers were beneficiaries of that. The Denver Broncos were beneficiaries of that. Both Kyle and Mike Shanahan have appreciated what Bobby Turner does in that respect. I feel slightly better about it because of the Anthony Lynn signing, but that doesn't take away from the feeling of loss that I experience in Bobby Turner stepping away.
Yeah, I agree with that. When you go back and you really look at what he's done in his NFL coaching career, just in the NFL alone, he spent his entire career with the Shanahans, whether it was Mike Shanahan starting in Denver in 95 or with Kyle throughout, he followed Kyle to Atlanta, out here to the 49ers. And he's a guy who's done a lot of really good things. And when you look at the just for example, the guys that he's been able to find in the draft, late in the draft, he has the following four guys. He was big on drafting them in the 6th round. Guys like Terrell Davis, Elijah Mitchell. There was who else was there? Alfred Morris was another name, and there was one other one as well during his time out in Washington that they were able to pull in. It was, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on it right now. Mike Anderson. So
Not
Terrell
Clinton
Davis,
Portis, though, because he was a high pick, right?
yeah, he was a high. So Terrell Davis in 95, Mike Anderson in 2000, Alfred Morris in 2012, and then Elijah Mitchell this year in 2021. All 6th round draft picks that he was able to uncover. Terrell Davis goes on to become only the 4th player in NFL history to go over 2,000 yards. What's crazy about that, when you compare that to Elijah Mitchell, is that during Terrell Davis's rookie season, he averaged 4.7 yards per carry. Elijah Mitchell this year averaged 4.7 yards per carry. The only difference was that he got banged up a little bit more, and so that's why he didn't reach 1,000 yards. But he's definitely in that ballpark. So definitely, it's going to be tough to have him not there. I think the Ferners are going to miss him. I think they might have his replacement already in the building, though, in Bobby Turner, in Anthony Lynn.
Yeah. And that gives me some solace, right? I mean, I think that there will be an evolution to the run game this year. I would anticipate that you were probably looking at something like that happening anyway with Trey Lance coming in, but it would appear with Anthony Lynn's background that you'll have some more power running schemes worked in there. And I think the end result could be positive for the San Francisco 49ers. I just feel remiss if I didn't acknowledge how special Bobby Turner has been to both of the Shanahans, the Shanahan family tree in its entirety, and certainly for the San Francisco 49ers in those undrafted free agents and the late round finds. And, you know, it is those assets that the Niners have been able to bring in that allow us to say, well, you don't need to invest premium picks or big dollars in free agency because we can just bring in somebody off of the street. I don't know if that's true anymore. I don't know that that's the case. If you take Bobby Turner out of the equation, potentially the Niners might need to shift that strategy.
They might, and one of those shifts that they could make in strategy would be picking up the phone and calling the New York Giants and asking if it'd be okay for them to trade for Saquon Barkley. I know you were out at the combine, obviously, and you were nearby when New York Giants general manager Joe Schoen, I think that's how you pronounce his name. If I'm wrong on that, I'm sorry, Joe. But he mentioned that they are looking for ways to kind of deal with Barkley's contract this year, and a trade could be on the table.
Yeah, I mean, he sounded very open to it in what I heard. We were in the midst of another conversation when he was maybe 20 feet away from where we were. And that comment about Saquon Barkley piqued my interest. I mean, it got my attention, and I turned around and paid attention to his answer there that had come up after one of the reporters threw that question out there. And, you know, I'll be honest that leading up to this, I would have said no way. I would have said that the Niners don't need to invest that type of capital into the running back room. The position as a whole is being devalued. The Niners seem to have a reasonable amount of talent. I'd like to find out what we have in Trey Sermon from that regard. But in this shift with Bobby Turner, it becomes a question that potentially we have to revisit and discuss the positives and negatives as to why that might be a good decision for the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, exactly. He seems to be the type of back who gives them a little bit of an explosive element in the pass and run game. He's does a really good job of both, and we saw him do that ever since going back to his days at Penn State. It really comes down to, I think, what it would take to bring him in, and then, you know, obviously there'd have to be some discussions on redoing his deal to extend him. But if you could get Saquon Barkley for a, you know, maybe a 3rd round pick or something like that, and whatever the number is, that would be really, really a positive for the 49ers, or maybe even trade George Kittle for Saquon Barkley. I don't know, throwing George Kittle's name out there, you know.
There have been a lot of trade George Kittle rumors out there recently, and you know, I mean, it's.
I'm kidding. We're not trading George Kittle for Saquon Barkley. People, don't take me 100% serious on that one. We're not. George Kittle will be the tight end for the 49ers in 2022.
Yes, I mean, I like the idea of exploring this. I still think that the 49ers could fill out that room with a little more prudence. You know, it would strike me that you have Elijah Mitchell there, you have Trey Sermon there. To me, if you can bring back Jeff Wilson Jr. and Raheem Mostert, to me, that fills out that room pretty nicely. And I don't know that I would explore Saquon Barkley. But if you miss out on Raheem Mostert, that might change my equation, because I do believe, regardless of the injury history, when Raheem Mostert is healthy and operating within Shanahan's offense, he brings something to that offense that no other back on the roster does. And if you're not going to be able to add that to the Shanahan offense, potentially you need another big weapon to bring in. And there's no doubt at the skill level of Saquon Barkley. I think for me, the biggest question mark are things that I haven't explored yet. What would it take to bring him in? What type of draft compensation would the Giants be looking for? Where is he in the midst of his contract, right? What type of dead money are the Giants going to have to absorb in this deal that might dictate them asking for a higher price? And then, most importantly, what is he set to earn once he's traded to his future team? And to your point, can the 49ers extend that contract and make it much more manageable for the future? If the answer to those questions is suitable from a talent perspective, it seems like a no-brainer.
I believe that Barkley is going into, I think they picked up his 5th-year option. I think that's where they are, is that he's going into his 5th-year option year. And so he's a guaranteed like $7 million, somewhere in that ballpark. Who knows what they'd be asking for? I mean, you know, Bolivar here, he had asked about bringing Mostert back. You mentioned Mostert as well. So if you bring Mostert back, and maybe Barkley isn't the route you go, but I would say, you know, maybe you trade Trey Sermon, right? As a player, give him a player and a pick to bring him in, and you know, then you're going to be redoing that 5th-year option kind of deal, like what Indianapolis did with DeForest Buckner when they made the trade with the 49ers, because that money is guaranteed. So he's guaranteed that he's going to make that, his cash in hand next year is going to be $7 million. So that's your kind of your starting for a signing bonus. You're going to have to add that plus money into his contract for future years. So just something to think about there.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's something that the 49ers have to consider, because you're looking at potentially a new offensive system next year, and you've got to look at what's the potential fit. And I'd love to say that's Trey Sermon, but let's be very honest about the fact that with what we saw, it doesn't appear the 49ers have the greatest level of confidence in Trey. So if they do, they hit it very well over last season.
Yeah, they did that with a number of guys, it seems like. Real quick before I let you go, because I know you're hungry, let's just do one more. It's kind of a multi-layered, because there's multiple players in here. But let's just hit this one chat from Tom. He says, "Jack and Rob,
absolutely,
thoughts
I
on
love
PFF's?"
chats from Tom. Tom is a very informed individual.
See, that's when those are the best ones, right? The guys that know what they're talking about. They have just enough to come in and really challenge you, you know. And so he says that Melvin Ingram, PFF has Melvin Ingram coming to the 49ers on a 1-year deal. Stephen Gilmore going to the cornerback, going to Arizona, and Tyrann Mathieu going to Baltimore. What are your thoughts on those three? Let's start with the 49ers one, obviously, because it's Melvin Ingram and the 49ers need some edge rush.
Yeah, I was interested in Melvin Ingram last year. I guess I'm lukewarm there. I see a great fit with Dante Fowler, and maybe I'm just, you know, dreaming about that one, but that to me feels like a better edge pick with more upside. Melvin Ingram, you know, definitely has the injury history, certainly a extremely capable player when healthy, but to me, getting up there in age, if I'm correct, Melvin Ingram, I want to say, is now in his 30s. To me, that one doesn't excite me quite as much. I still hope that the Niners explore Gilmore, although honestly, after the coaching hire and the statement by DJ Reed, as DJ Reed is my second favorite corner on the free agent market, Gilmore and then DJ Reed, it seems like it's setting up for the 49ers to go after DJ Reed and have some success there, given the addition to the coaching staff for them and DJ Reed's fondness there. I'd be okay if we missed out on Gilmore. It'd be a real shame if he ended up in Arizona. You don't like to see anyone in the division getting stronger. I would target, of the three listed there, I would target Gilmore first and foremost, personally.
Yeah, I'm looking at this, and the only one that I really disagree with here would be Ingram. I just feel like people are undervaluing the contribution of Samson Ebukam, partly because he didn't splash in the beginning. He was a free agent and so on, and he didn't splash right off the bat. It took him a little while, but once he got moved into the starting lineup, that's when he started. His play definitely upticked, and you were able to see him. We got to remember he's a guy who was splitting time between being a edge rusher and a linebacker with the Rams. So he's just now getting into the ability to where just he's focusing solely on that edge rush. And so I think when you look at this, I think I'd rather have Samson Ebukam at 8 million or do it, add another year to it so you can reduce his cap hit just a little bit. I think rather have Ebukam, who's a little bit younger, have him over Ingram. And then I definitely like Gilmore. I would definitely take a look at Gilmore. He's as a one or couple, maybe a 2 or 3 year option there. But I'm with you. I think DJ Reed is the top on my list. Really, either DJ Reed or Desmond King from Houston. Those are the two that I really like. And then with regards to Matthew to Baltimore, I think if you're going to spend money on a safety, it should be Reed from Houston should be the guy that you're looking at there. I think it's Jordan Reed. I think that's who you'd want to spend the money on if you're going after a safety.
Yeah, I could see the 49ers. It's interesting, right? I agree. Samson Ebukam was coming on later in the year. I also want to see what Charles Omenihu can do. As he was saying himself, just give me a full year in this system. I mean, toward the end of the year, he really was coming on. So I think I would rather give extended playing time to those two on the edge as opposed to bringing in someone like Melvin Ingram, who has not had more than a single sack in a year since 2019, right? That was his last season in which he had 7 sacks. Since then, 0, 1, and 1. And some of that is limited use, and some of that is certainly injury. If I were going to bring somebody in on the edge, I would rather get a little bit younger, like the Dante Fowler, and then keep the other players, role players for the 49ers in the rotation, Charles Omenihu and Samson Ebukam. If I could add in Dante Fowler to that, I would consider that position closed at that point as far as viable starters. And then I could see the 49ers targeting one of the safeties available in the draft and go young at that position if they're unable to bring back Jaquiski Tartt. Although I, like you, would enjoy seeing Eric Reed at that position for the 49ers as well.
Same here. Yeah, I think it's Jordan's brother, right? Jordan Reed. I think that's what his name is. But then real quick, and Bolivar also throws out Gilmore, Barkley, Fowler. Do we have the cap space? The answer to that is probably not for all three. You probably have the ability to bring in 3 players, not at that level though, because Barkley would be a little over 7, which is a big number for a running back. Gilmore is probably going to be, 10 plus, and then Fowler you could bring in I would think on a cheaper end deal. But the Ferners are going to have a pretty decent amount of cap space, probably right around $22 million by the time they move on from Jimmy Garoppolo, sign their exclusive rights free agents and restricted free agents, save a little bit of money for their draft group, and so on and so forth. And if they decide to trade, then it doesn't matter because they can use that money from the draft to the guys that they choose to trade for. So they have some money there, but to get 3 players of that caliber like Gilmore and Barkley, I don't think they have the money to do that. But I definitely think they might have the ability to bring in one top end player.
Yeah, I don't think the 49ers make huge splashes in free agency. I tend to agree that either a couple of mid-level players or, one sort of splashier name. I think the vast majority of what the 49ers are going to look to do in free agency is bring back their own. And that will be somewhat splashy to those of us that are crying for, the return of DJ Jones or Laken Tomlinson. If they're able to land their own key free agents, I would consider it a very successful offseason.
Yeah, same here. I think the 49ers are in a better situation, quite honestly, than they were a year ago. So I think that it's going to be an offseason that's going to work out in their favor. They're going to be able to bring a lot of guys in. And it's going to be fun to watch the quarterback go. That's Jimmy Garoppolo watch is still on as far as what's going to happen with him. I think we're going to have some resolution to that in the next 2 weeks. Real quick before we head out, just Spy Nick Danger says go Jack. He says go Rob, and of course the last one, hit the like button. So that's the show for tonight. I'm going to let Rob go eat. It's what time is it, Rob? Is it 8:30 right now or 9:30 where you are?
It is 9:30, and Rob needs to get his dinner on.
It is 9:30. This man has given us almost an hour of his time with a hungry stomach, probably growling. He's probably got a big lion in there right now. So we're going to let him go eat, get his food on, and probably a little bit of a drink with the guys that are out there, Jason and Jordan and so on. So Rob, thank you so much for coming on tonight. I know we normally do this on Monday, but I really appreciate you doing this live with me from the Combine.
Absolutely. I look forward to finding a time that works for both of us later in the week on my channel. I will be attempting to bring out regular content for the people. They should be patient in that it will be a flexible schedule based on when I'm able to get the stream going, when I'm able to coordinate with guests. It is a little more complicated operating from the road than it is at home.
It is. There's definitely a lot more going on. So again, thanks a lot for coming on. Thanks to everybody for joining. If you could please go hit that like button, hit that subscribe button for me. And also, if you could hit that little bell notification so you know when we go live, that'd be fantastic. Beyond that, have a great night, everybody. Keep yourself locked into the channel. There'll be new content coming up tomorrow, and then Hammer and Nails on Thursday. And then I'm going to be taking a little bit of vacation after that for a few days. So that's going to be nice. I haven't done that in a while.
All right.
I'm going to actually be up in Rob's neck of the woods for a few days. So
nice.
I'm going to be in Portland while he's in Indianapolis. Have a great, a great rest of your evening. Thank you, Rob, again for so much for joining, and go get some food. Take care, everybody. Cheers, as Rob likes to say.